and gentlemen, welcome to the conference on continuous manufacturing, transitioning from batch to continuous manufacturing. Brought to you by Pharma Pro&Pack Expo, jointly organized by Indian Pharma Machinery Manufacturers Association and Messe München India in cooperation with Indian Pharmaceutical Alliance. I am MC Sabrina, your host for today, and it gives me immense pleasure to welcome our esteemed panelists, moderator, exhibitors, supportive sponsors, and attendees to the Day 2 of Pharma Pro&Pack Expo 2023, the leading trade fair for pharma processing and packaging machinery. Pharma Pro&Pack Expo has taken this initiative to integrate international and homegrown manufacturers, pharma machinery users, consultants, and key government officials in one arena, creating ideal grounds for networking and engaging industry professionals for business collaborations. The objective of this conference is to discuss and deliberate on benefits, challenges, and hurdles, process required, and transformative potential to transition from batch to continuous manufacturing. Taking that thought forward, today we will throw some light on the topic continuous manufacturing, transitioning from batch to manufacturing. So firstly, I would like to extend a heartfelt thank you to the Indian Pharmaceutical Alliance and Mr. Sirish Belapure, who are responsible in conceptualizing this entire topic. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. And now let us begin with our first presentation of the day. I'm excited to introduce Mr. Vijay Vittal, the esteemed Head of Quality and Manufacturing at GLAD, who will be delivering a presentation on the topic of continuous manufacturing, transitioning from batch to continuous manufacturing. So ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome him on stage. And as he joins us, I'll say a few words about you, sir. Mr. Vittal brings a wealth of experience and expertise in the field of quality and manufacturing with a primary focus on paradigm shift towards continuous manufacturing processes. His vast knowledge and insights have made him a highly sought after industry expert. Please, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together as we welcome on stage Mr. Vijay Vittal. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. Welcome to all the panelists and the audience. And today's discussion, the topic is on continuous manufacturing. In fact, it's such a vast subject, and I'll try my best to do all the justice within next 30 minutes. What you see is the continuous manufacturing line. The space-wise, what this particular line takes is just about more than this particular podium, and which is to the tune of about 50 kg per hour. Thus the capacities, thus the space saving what we can expect when we talk about continuous manufacturing. And these are going to be the broad contents of my presentation today. Globally, there has been a lot of demand and continuous drive to reduce the cost per pill. And there have been quite a lot of companies, organizations working very, very hard to achieve this particular global objective. And in the recent times, the pandemic COVID has really challenged all the manufacturing companies regarding scale up and scale out. How difficult it is when such a pandemic strikes the world. How fast, how quickly we are in a position to respond to such challenge. And industry has been searching out for a response a solution for this particular challenge, and continuous manufacturing says it all. That actually resolves such challenges. Let's see how it does. And as far as the continuous manufacturing is concerned, ICH and FDA, apart from other agencies, have been working very, very hard to promote continuous manufacturing. And as per their definition, continuous manufacturing is a process in which continuous feed-in of materials, and they are processed in a continuous fashion, and we get the throughput continuous fashion. That in a nutshell what is a continuous manufacturing. Now if you see the one on the picture on the right hand side in the topmost corner, it is how a continuous manufacturing steps are involved in. Right from synthesis, right from the raw materials getting into the system, throughout the process, different unit operations, and how the output, the throughput comes out. And the entire process, right from feeding in the raw materials to actually final tablets or final dosage form, it is in the terms of days, if it is continuous manufacturing. And we know that if it is in the case of batch, we don't talk about in days, but months. That's the biggest advantage when we shift from batch to continuous manufacturing. And ICH Q13, Quality Guideline 13, has been really working hard in harmonizing different concepts, different agencies like FDA, to come out with a proper guideline which addresses the challenges faced. How do we shift? How do we migrate from batch to continuous manufacturing? And to a great extent, ICH Quality Guideline 13 is the standard which is to be followed for continuous manufacturing. And thanks to all the stalwarts, all the experts who are really putting their blood and sweat in realizing this particular guideline. Now, what are the benefits of continuous manufacturing? Apart from, as far as the development stage goes, faster development, faster time to market, and definitely the amount of drug substance which is going to be consumed is much, much lesser as compared to a batch manufacturing. And development studies, they are definitely possible on commercial scale, and there is no need of scaling up, unlike batch manufacturing. And scaling up has been the biggest impediment or the time killer when we talk about batch manufacturing. Whereas in terms of continuous manufacturing, it's the question of how long you run the process that defines your batch. And in terms of productionization, definitely as we have seen in the first snippet itself, the amount of flow space it is going to take is quite considerably less. Sometimes it is near to the tune of about 70% lesser space as compared to your equivalent batch manufacturing. And a lot of flexibility you get in terms of defining your batches, depending upon the market demands, what speed you'll have to run, how long you need to learn, so that the market demands, the ever-pressing, changing market demands can be satisfied. And needless to mention at the end is the quality assurance. As we run through the presentation, we learn that RTRT, that is real-time testing for release, that is in the inherent part of continuous manufacturing. And because of that, the quality of the product, the efficiency and efficacy of the product is maintained and in a consistent manner. So when we come to the flow space, you see the one which is on the left hand side, the image what you see on the left hand side is normally what is the space required for a batch manufacturing. Whereas the one which is on the right hand side, it's as good as a small room. The same particular capacities of batch manufacturing you can actually get into if you use continuous manufacturing. Flow space, optimization of the flow space is paramount. And reduced wastages. This is another important aspect. If it is a typical batch manufacturing, the wastages are typically to the tune of about 3 to 4%. Whereas in the case of continuous manufacturing, as we can run continuously without any break, the wastages, in fact, could be far, far lesser than 1%. So that's the greatest advantage as compared to wastages of starting materials and then drug substance. And in terms of energy saving, it's just an example. If you look at only the fluid bed drying, most of the energy actually spent in heating the stainless steel involved. Whereas in continuous manufacturing, you can save at least to the tune of about 27%, as can be seen in this example. And apart from all the other benefits, as the amount of drug substance what we'll be consuming in continuous manufacturing is small as compared to a batch manufacturing, it gives us far-reaching benefits in terms of environment friendliness and sustainability. And when we deal with continuous manufacturing, we'll see that quite a lot of complex algorithms ought to be in place. And continuously, each and every process parameter, CPPs, critical process parameters, critical quality attributes, they need to be continuously monitored. And thanks to artificial intelligence and expert systems, this could be possible with the advent of AI and machine learning. And furthermore, machine learning algorithms can be very much be established in a continuous manufacturing process to understand more about the process, what are the attributes of how actually product quality could be defined, what happens when a particular CPP goes out of control. This gives us a lot of knowledge to optimize all our processes. And this is one aspect is real-time release testing. This is inbuilt when we go for continuous manufacturing processes. This gives us a lot of inputs, and unlike a batch manufacturing processes where to release a particular batch, it takes days, sometimes weeks, whereas in continuous manufacturing process, it is instant. This is another advantage. And in terms of flexibility, suppose today I have a batch manufacturing capacity, let us say for 100 kg line. And I suppose tomorrow I need to immediately switch to 200 kg line. It involves quite a lot of capital investment and start from infrastructure and other space requirements, utility requirements, finding out the right vendor, all these particular things. Whereas with the continuous manufacturing, it is by the switch of a button. It is possible. And this is another important aspect of continuous manufacturing, which is decentralized manufacturing. Imagine I have in Hyderabad, in a particular place, I have set up a continuous manufacturing line, and tomorrow, because of some local manufacturing which is needed, there is a pandemic somewhere. I cannot, I want to shift this entire manufacturing facility there to the site so that I can quickly start manufacturing. It is very much possible because of the portability of continuous manufacturing, because it is very, very small size as compared to batch manufacturing plants. So portability is very high. And in terms of approval times, we have seen that if we go with, if you file a particular product which is manufactured under continuous manufacturing, the approval process is at least less by 3 months, and at least time to market at least less by 4 months. And after approval, within 1 month, you can really start producing. To sum it up, these are all the benefits that we talked about in terms of increased production volume, smaller footprint, and all other features. In a nutshell, it's not that there are all positives of continuous manufacturing. Yes, there are some cons. The cons, especially the pros, already I've discussed and elaborated so far. But the cons is there is significant knowledge required to run a continuous manufacturing line. So we need to upgrade our knowledge in terms of how do we run, because there's a lot of instrumentation, there are a lot of sensors, soft sensors, hard sensors, part technology is used, but it gets time to really start using them and start exploiting the utility of all this particular sensor technology. If you see, way back in 2015, that was the first FDA plant approved which actually started manufacturing based on continuous manufacturing, that is Vertex, way back in 2015. And you can see there is a progression continuously. There's a lot of interest, industry has shown, the regulatory authorities also have shown a lot of interest in continuous manufacturing. They see quite a lot of benefits and accruing to the end user as well and to the environment. And these are just to give you a major lines which have been running under continuous manufacturing, which have been approved by FDA. And see, though you see only 11 entries over here, for the past 30 years, GLAD has been working on the elements which are required for continuous manufacturing. When you talk about continuous manufacturing, it's not that entire line could be continuous, maybe produced under continuous manufacturing. There could be some batch processes, but there are some batch processes, but need to be integrated with continuous manufacturing processes, maybe by putting certain buffers. But there are quite a lot of elements like blenders which are to be needed, continuous fluid bed dryers are needed, continuous coaters are needed. These are all the elements GLAD has been working for the past 30 years to develop all these particular elements required for. And these are the lines, complete lines, granulation lines and direct compression lines, which have been provided by GLAD world over. Apart from these particular lines, we had given quite a lot of lines to quite a lot of educational universities in USA and Germany, and even FDA authorities as well. There are some particular processes running, so that they also wanted to understand hands-on what are actually the benefits. Okay, and apart from this, in terms of food, feed and fine chemicals, we had installed more than 100 units. But these are not lines, but these are individual unit operations, but work on continuous manufacturing philosophy. So this is one particular piece of information I just wanted to say. In continuous pharmaceuticals, USA and MIT, they now got together and actually working together to work out integrated continuous manufacturing philosophies. It's like right from end to end, right from, let us say, how API is manufactured, how is it actually integrated with the granulation system. They're working on that particular thing. So that's going to be the things of future which are going to come. But we have so many advantages, yes, but let us really look at, then if there are so many advantages of continuous manufacturing, why the industry is not really moving forward? Certainly there are certain barriers. Let us try and then explain these particular barriers. See, first is the equipment. There is a widespread perception that continuous manufacturing, any element of continuous manufacturing, they are very, very specific and that cannot be actually scaled up or used in batch manufacturing, which is not really so. They are quite interchangeable. And continuous manufacturing necessitates the use of high-tech, high analytical tools, and hence there is quite a lot of knowledge gap. Yes, there is a knowledge gap, but it can be bridged by continuous interaction within people who have really implemented and established continuous manufacturing methods, and the machine manufacturers and the educational institutions. The next is regulatory. As we have seen so far, though we have been talking about continuous manufacturing for the past 20 odd years, there is no single guideline which was very clearly sharing all the inputs which are how do we shift from a particular batch manufacturing to continuous manufacturing. But we are lucky now ICH Quality Guideline 13, which is just released 2 months ago, can bridge this particular gap and is very, very exhaustive, and it tries to provide the guidelines to the industry. How do we think of moving from batch to continuous manufacturing? And economic reasons. Suppose I have one particular product running already on batch manufacturing, which is my cash cow. Now, yes, the benefits of continuous manufacturing I can see, but can I move? Not immediately. We need to think of all the pros and cons. It requires investment, yes. Investment not in terms of machine. Machine cost actually is fractional. But much more than the piece of equipment is the sort of technological aspects, the knowledge. There is a gap existing. Even there is a lot of knowledge gap across the regulatory authorities as well. Now, for the past 20 years, as they have seen quite a lot of installations, and then they learned quite a lot of this particular information based on the already existing manufacturing setups which work on CM. Now, there is, to a great extent, there is enough of knowledge even with the regulatory authorities. Now, this particular guideline is very, very exhaustive and very useful. Well, when we talk about perception of risk, risk is there whenever there is some new thing in the market. But whether this particular risk could be mitigated by the advantages with CM, that's what one has to look at, very different pros and cons. And it's not that any particular product, let us say, I'm talking about generics in my next slide, could be changed over to CM. We need to look at what is my single prime mover, which is the main decision maker. And looking at that particular aspect, we need to think whether we can migrate to CM. And of course, I have already talked about the sort of skill sets needed. See, there's going to be in the process control strategy, a lot of analytical equipment are going to be used in unison with the continuous motion manufacturing equipment. But there has to be a knowledge, how do we use them effectively? There's a lot of data which is going to be created. How do we analyze this particular data? How do we exploit this particular data so that my end product is consistently with great quality? Now coming to generics. So we know in generics market, one of the major ways of making money is actually to produce in large volumes. Well, as far as large volumes are concerned, CM can definitely is a candidate where we can think of large volumes. But total cost of acquisition for a generics market, will it be the same particular rules will you apply for a branded product? Obviously not. So you need to think of what product we are talking about, whether it makes economical sense, and then go for switching over from batch to continuous manufacturing. Now I'm just touching upon some differences. In the case of a batch manufacturing, we know what a batch, how we actually define a batch. But in terms of continuous manufacturing, suppose I have a line which is running at, let us say, 50 kg per hour. If I continue working at a constant mass flow rate for some more time, let us say 1 hour, I get 50 kg. Suppose if I work for 8 hours, I get 400 kg batch. So batch definition, this also has to be in the dossier that we'll be actually registering with the authorities. We'll have to define how we are going to define our batch. Whether it is by means of extending the time or increasing this particular mass flow rate, we need to define that. Now let us look at what are the differences between batch manufacturing and continuous manufacturing. There are differences. Of course, batch definition we have seen. Traceability is one very, very important thing in continuous manufacturing, where we have the traceability online continuously, we can actually define a particular packet of material, where is it at a given amount of time, very, very precisely. And in terms of product quality, in batch manufacturing, we are all, it is possible to actually rework a batch. Whereas in continuous manufacturing, except for starting up and then ending, where you need to end up rejecting certain material, which is fractionally lesser, there is absolutely, you cannot rework even if you want to. In fact, there is no need to rework in continuous manufacturing. And amount of waste generated, I've already touched upon. Amount of dead spots. See, this is again very, very important thing in terms of batch manufacturing. When do we get to know whether a particular material is not homogeneous? Only after completing the batch. Whereas in the case of continuous manufacturing, on time, that is the principle of understanding the resident time distribution, where there's a lot of software and tools are actually used, statistical tools are also used, and at the time of, let us say, doing the PQ of any particular machine which is working on CM, we use some markers to understand resident time distribution. And that becomes very important to work out later on, feed forward or feedback signals from the control system. Yeah. And in terms of new products, suppose if we are going for in a current batch manufacturing, existing equipment, type of existing equipment we can use. And definitely when you are scaling up, again, you need to go through the Herculean task of scaling up process, whereas in CM, there is no scaling up. It is based on the time. You increase the time, instead of working for 12 hours a day, you work for continuously for 24 hours, then you have double the batch size. The scale up is so easy and then effective. And in terms of the initial costs and then running costs, initial costs are low with respect to, higher with respect to batch manufacturing, but not because of the equipment cost, because of the knowledge to be gained. The entire production engineers on floor and operators on the floor, they need to gain the knowledge. How do we operate? What does this particular batch report mean to me? Okay. And in terms of cleaning, manual cleaning and CAP cleaning is available in batch manufacturing, but so far in continuous manufacturing, here literally each and every part you can remove and then clean without any use of any tools. So first wet it and then remove all the parts and then clean. Even today, though, people are working on how do we actually create CIP systems in CM, but still it is in the nascent stage. This is a typical configuration of where we have API, which is getting manufactured on the left-hand side, what you can see through various synthesis and crystallization processes. And on the right-hand side, that's integrated with the granulation line. Here you'll notice that there are quite a lot of gates where we have, see here, where T is written, these are actually part tools, and where D4, all this particular, these are the places where there are waste gates. Once any particular CPP or CQA is going out of specs, then this particular thing is stamped by software, and exactly that particular patch of material is rejected, and in the continuous fashion. And to define this particular out of spec, there is a software tool which actually any continuous manufacturing equipment, actually they have their own software tool using a lot of statistical methods as well to stamp a particular material which is out of spec, and then very next rejection gate, this particular material could be rejected. And this is the typical configuration for a direct compression system, wherein we have, let us say there are 3 components which are to be mixed. We have a blender, continuous blender here, and after continuous blending, we have, it gets into the tablet press, and subsequently into the tablet coater. Here also in this particular path where we have the relevant part tools which are used and waste gauge. This is a typical direct compression system what I had explained you earlier, but in much more detailed fashion over here. Now in terms of capacities, we have three lines. We call it as XS, S and M line. XS line as small as 1 kg per hour, which is that particular capacity, and then 15 kg per hour and 50 kg per hour. And depending upon the customer requirements, we have even designed and model manufactured even more than 50 kg per hour. And this is how a typical configuration, the actual installation of direct compression looks like. We have the weighing systems over here, loss in weight feeders. Then we have anti-vibration platform, because these particular loss in weight feeders are very, very sensitive. They are mounted on load cells. Even small disturbance would cause disturbance in the process. So then after that we have a set of part tools over here. Then getting into the tablet compression machine. And before that we have blend uniformity, and during tablet compression we have content uniformity as well. And depending upon the values which are actually sensed and monitored by both these particular part tools, we can decide whether a particular tablet is out of spec and reject it in the rejected gauge. And this is a typical configuration of a wet granulation line, wherein we have the wet material getting into, the raw material getting into by means of product conveying system. Then we have the scales over here, loss in weight feeders, then gets into the wet granulator over here, which is twin screw type granulator. Then after this it gets into a fluid bed dryer, which works in continuous motion. Then after drying, we get into, again by means of product conveying system, we add magnesium stearate, and then get into the tablet press over here. And here you can see after the tablet press, this is getting integrated with a continuous coater as well. This I skipped. Now this is the crux of entire CM, real-time release testing. This has been possible only by means of sophisticated technology, sensors, whether they are hard sensors or soft sensors. And real time you can estimate exactly, find out which patch of material is where and which is acceptable and which is not acceptable. So to do this particular trials, we have a lot of DOA experiments which needs to be done, and then use markers to understand the residence time distribution, and then work out the analogy or the protocol. When do we reject a particular material, and after rejection, when do we stop rejection, when do we start producing again the right quality material. So typically you can see that all this particular part tools can be used, this particular information which can be used to create a model to estimate the dissolution profile. And subsequently you can continuously monitor whether the dissolution profile, what it is giving actually without doing the dissolution study, by means of sampling technique over here, taking the sample and then understanding whether what this particular software tool, that is the dissolution profile, whether it is matching with the actual dissolution profile or not. If not, again do the adjustments and then continuously do this. This is the crux of any continuous motion system. And so far we have said that RTRT has been definitely necessary when you go for continuous manufacturing. But it's not that we can limit this particular utility to continuous manufacturing. These principles can also be used and exploited and explored whether we can use it in large volume batch manufacturing as well. So as long as, if I summarize this particular thoughts, continuous process, as long as you keep it alive for longer and longer and longer, that is going to give you more benefits, accrued benefits on the time. And OS, that is out of specs, product waste discharge, that could be as late as possible in the system. See, when we are designing this particular process flow and then the equipment, we need to see where is the strategic locations, where do I place this particular waste gates. And as late as possible in the process, if I do it, then as little of material we can waste. And basically this is how it works. In this particular graph, if you see, this particular patch of material is out of spec. This is stamped software by the software, and by the time it reaches the nearest waste gate, this particular patch of material is wasted. And if we come to conclusions, this is what I could summarize the conclusions of regarding batch to continuous motion manufacturing. And a lot of references, a lot of people have been working, a lot of PhD students, a lot of PhD theses have been on this particular subject. I could draw most of this particular information from ICH guidelines. And thank you one and all for patient hearing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vittal. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, let us give him a huge round of applause as he was our first presenter of the day. Thank you very much, sir. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let us quickly start our first panel discussion of the day. And the discussion is going to revolve around continuous manufacturing, transitioning from batch to continuous manufacturing. And to moderate this session, we have with us, with a huge round of applause, let us welcome him, Mr. Sirish Belapure, Senior Technical Advisor, Indian Pharmaceutical Alliance. Sir, can we have you on stage? Mr. Belapure is a highly accomplished professional with an illustrious career spanning several decades. His vast experience and expertise make him a go-to authority on all matters related to this field. He currently serves on the governing board of Parenteral Drug Association and is an active member of professional bodies such as International Society of Pharmaceutical Engineering, Indian Pharmaceutical Association, and IPA's Quality Forum. These associations demonstrate his passion for staying connected with industry developments and sharing his knowledge and insights with fellow professionals. So, welcome you, sir. So, let us quickly move on to our panelists who have taken their precious time out and be here along with us. Our first panelist is Mr. Anil Arora, the President of Global Manufacturing Operations at Granules India. Sir, can we have you on stage? Mr. Arora is a highly accomplished professional with extensive experience in the field of manufacturing operations. His role as a president of Global Manufacturing Operations at Granules India showcases his exceptional leadership abilities and strategic mindset. So welcome you, sir. Moving on to our next panelist, please put your hands together for Mr. BVRKS Srinivas Rao, the Head of Formulations Operations at Gravity. Mr. Rao is a highly accomplished professional with a wealth of experience in the field of formulations and operations. His expertise lies in managing and overseeing the production and supply chain processes within the pharmaceutical industry. We welcome you, sir. And now let us move on to our next panelist, who is Dr. G.P. Rao, the Vice President of Operations at the Hetero Group, with a huge round of applause. Dr. Rao is an accomplished professional with a wealth of experience in operations management. As a Vice President at Hetero Group, he has played a pivotal role in driving operational excellence and ensuring the company's success in a highly competitive pharmaceutical industry. And now let us call My apologies, Dr. G.P. Rao. I think the designation which we have as Vice President, but I've just learned that he's the Director. So huge round of applause once again, and I beg your pardon for that, sir. Moving on to our next panelist, who is Dr. Pawan Bhatt. Can we give a huge round of applause to Ms. Dr. Pawan Bhatt? With over 25 years of experience in pharma industry, Dr. Bhatt is a highly accomplished professional with extensive experience in the pharmaceutical industry. His expertise lies in technical operations, where he has made significant contributions to ensuring quality, efficiency, and compliance within pharmaceutical manufacturing. Well, he is the Director and Executive Vice President, NATCO Pharma. We welcome you, sir. And now our fifth panelist who's going to join us on stage is Mr. Girish Kottapalli. Sir, can we have you on stage? The VP Operation, Laurus Labs Limited, a chemical engineer from BITS Pilani, having an outstanding experience of more than 25 years in the pharma industry. A techno-commercial expert, worked with eminent pharma industries like Dr. Reddy's, Mylan, Ranbaxy and Laurus Labs, an expert in designing and construction aspects of the formulation and API plants, an expert in the life cycle management of pharma equipment and energy conservation for pharma industry. So we have our panelists, we have our moderator. Sir, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning to all of you. I think my job is made very easy by the earlier presentation by Mr. Vittal. I think it talks about the advantages, disadvantages and other thing. But that's a theory, or what he was talking about. It was more a theory part. Let us look at practical how it can be done or what has been done so far. We have got a very good panel over here with a lot of experience in the manufacturing. And each one of them have tried either complete or some part of the continuous manufacturing there. In this panel discussion, we will talk about regulatory considerations, how this flexibility can be used for this purpose, what are the advantages from the productivity as well as the bringing the cost of the production down. So all these aspects and technological aspects also we'll discuss in the panel. So I think my first question to my panel, and it's a simple question probably, what do you think about the continuous manufacturing? I'll start with
I mean, once again, thank you, sir, Sirish sir. I think as Vittal sir said, and continuous manufacturing is the future. I mean, everybody in the generic market should be definitely going towards that. It's because of a lot of technological advantages, and definitely cost of production and reliability for the patient who's paying for it, and we are supposed to deliver the same quality of medicine at every time. It's not once for one batch and second batch, but every time that consistency should be there. That's the reason people opt for it. We have a lot of barriers in that in terms of regulatory and everything, but still the future is continuous manufacturing. That's what we believe. Yeah, thank you.
Good morning, everybody. So I think continuous manufacturing is a concept that has been floating around for about close to a decade now, 7 or 8 years or so. And I think it started with the concept of trying to build quality into the process rather than finished product testing. And this is just an extension of that paradigm. We've seen introduction of or requirements for QBD, QoS, design of experiments, design space, CPP, CQA, process analytical technology, and now this is an extension of that in terms of trying to use all those tools in terms of trying to make manufacturing far more predictive so that the quality of the product is not tested at the end but real-time monitoring. Of course, I think the presentation previously highlighted all the pros and cons in terms of what is happening in terms of the advantage disadvantages, as well as what are the challenges, potential challenges in terms of transition from batch manufacturing to continuous manufacturing. I think it was a wonderful summary, but I'd like to say that like everything, there is no one shoe that fits all. So it is a case-by-case basis. I work with Natco Pharma, and we work with very expensive, potent, high-value, low-volume products. And I think certainly it may not be a suitable model for certain molecules, like what I just mentioned. It may or may not be suitable for new molecules where there's limited API. Of course, the thing that is disadvantageous is also an advantage, provided you have enough API and you have enough design control experiments that you build upfront. So I think my top line statement would be, it depends on what your product is. It depends on what you want to achieve. Certainly the switch from batch to continuous is a far more complicated phenomena than just switching over. For new products, as long as there is ample API, huge demand, huge volume requirements, most definitely continuous manufacturing is something that can be considered in the design phase in terms of filing, and work with the regulator in terms of addressing everything that is needed before you get an approval. So we'll have a very interactive session going through pros and cons. So that is my top line summary of that.
Hi, good morning all. Nowadays, this has become a buzzword. Continuous manufacturing, every medium scale to a large volume, a large scale manufacturers, they are looking at implementing this continuous manufacturing. And as Mr. Vittal narrated and made our task very easy, and he has narrated so many advantages of continuous manufacturing. And it is a buzzword in the industry how we can convert the conventional batch manufacturing to continuous manufacturing, at least a few products. As you are all aware that it is having its own limitations because the continuous manufacturing we have to build from the QBD concept. Then only it will be easy to convince the regulatory agencies, and we can avoid a lot of problems during continuous manufacturing. But it is a good concept, and it will ease the lot of workload on the shop floor. And the quality also, it will be inbuilt into the product, and it will make easy and reduce the production side and the quality control side and quality assurance for all the departments in the regulatory environment. It will become, the task will become easy by implementing this continuous manufacturing. And at the same time, we can meet the increased demands of the market. So we have to encourage this concept, and we have to gain the knowledge of continuous manufacturing and try to implement in all the units. It's my opinion.
Yeah, good morning all. See, we are all working in a regulated environment. Whether you like it or not, we are all governed by the regulations. See, FDA's thinking, expectation of a desired state is flexible, agile, robust manufacturing of a product, which is not dependent on any regulatory overview or seeing at you and all. So this is possible only, and see, if you look at that one, number 2, the PAT applications, number 3, continuous process verification. We all put together, they're all leading towards, we are going toward a continuous manufacturing, if you like it or not. That's what my take on that. See, I happen to be a luckiest person to introduce continuous quarter in India in 2011 in one of my companies, Granules India, where Anil is working now. Later on, we extended the same in Laurus Lab when I worked there. Like now, this is, even when I started using that equipment, when I started qualifying the equipment, I'm also having a lot of hindrances in my mind, barriers in my mind. But when I started installing, qualifying, and transferring the product, then I realized how simple it is. Yeah, it looks to be, because there are a lot of barriers, there are a lot of but we need to change. If you are open, if you use science-based, risk-based approaches, everything is easy. Thank you.
Anil.
Good morning. It all depends on, how do we define continuous manufacturing. I heard Vittal talk about a batch size of 50 kg to, per hour. I think there are companies who are working on a higher scale, trying to go up to 1000 kg per hour. Now, as I said, how do we define continuous manufacturing? It is up to us. A line which we can integrate right from granulation stage up to, let's say, up to the packaging stage. That also itself is a continuous manufacturing. The scale can be different. Today we say 50 kg per hour, where I'm using, and Srinivas talked about, a batch size of 7,000 kilogram. Can you imagine any formulation company making a batch of 7,000 kilogram? Now, if it is a 7,000 kilogram, and if I run at a rate of 50 kg per hour, how many hours will it take, right? And why this is required? Because this is more for generic formulae, because there the cost plays a major role. Now, accordingly, if we integrate such a big line, the granulation time itself will be around what? Not more than 7 to 8 hours. If I talk about 50 kg per hour, it takes a lot of time, maybe 14 hours or so. Now this can be integrated, and we have done that. This can be integrated up to, compression, and then integrating with a continuous coater which goes up to 1000 kg per hour. That's the coater which is available. Normally this was being used by food industries earlier, and none in the pharma industry was using it. And then it goes up to the inspection and even packaging stage also. So that's about continuous manufacturing. Now, I think in our discussion we'll talk about if there are costly products where we can't really go for this kind of a batch size, and rejection of one batch also matters. So there the smaller lines, or 50 kg or 100 kg or 200 kg per hour, comes into play, and that it plays very. So the answer is it really important? Yes, it is very important. Will it really transform the pharmaceutical industry? It will. So let's try and see how we can make use of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, panelists. As you can see, they have got very different opinions on the adopting the continuous manufacturing. And I think we need to resolve those issues before we really go into the next stage. So I think my next question, Anil has implemented it in his plan. So next question is to him. Basically, what are the challenges you encountered while implementing the continuous manufacturing? If you can also give some case studies, examples of those things, that will be very helpful. And how you resolved it, yeah. Thank you.
I'll first stick to the first one, because that's very important. Normally we use the word barrier. We say, what are the barriers to adopt a new technology? I think the first barrier is our mindset. That's what the first barrier I will say. Now, if we look at what are the challenges to solve for, if we really look at and start, I remember the time 35 years back when I started my career with pharmaceutical industry. That time and now it has evolved to a very different level. We used to make granulation batch in one of the room, pick up and transfer to the other room, try something there, and then take it to compression, and then continuously go to the other rooms. That was the stage 35 years back, and very few equipment manufacturers were there who used to supply these equipment. Now it has evolved over a year, where we moved to booster, top spray, bottom spray, all these kind of technologies. And from 2000, I think 10, 11 onwards, this continuous manufacturing discussion has started. Now, why it has taken 12 years for industries to switch over to this part? The biggest first challenges, I think I would say, is a regulatory challenge. Now, that is the topmost barrier as of now, if you look at from pharmaceutical industry point of view. If we really overcome that, and Vittal made a mention of it. Secondly, majority of the companies, pharmaceutical companies now, supply to different countries, including US, Europe, and many other countries. Now these regulatory guidelines have not been harmonized, right? It has not really percolated across all the countries. Now that becomes a challenge to implement anything because one country may accept, other country may not accept. That's another big challenge, and also when we implement some new technology and all, the fear of delays for approval, that's a bigger, again, one more challenge because the moment you file something, you will have a lot of questions coming in from regulatory bodies because they are not used to this kind of, say, barring US, because they have been encouraging to move to and switch to this technology. So that's another thing which we must keep in mind when we talk about what are the barriers or the challenges. Now, as Vittal also mentioned, and I'm sure all of us are aware, ICH Q13, that's something which is really bringing up, on all the requirements of continuous manufacturing. That will help us move forward on this as a technology. Other big challenge is initial cost of investment. When we implement something, when we have to buy this kind of technology, Vittal and Rizwan should not feel I am pointing towards GLAD. The purpose is we should really try and bring down the cost of this technology. Initially, there is a high cost which is associated, and if we have to move towards implementation of this technology right from the development stage, because it has to go to development stage, then only it will make sense for us to bring it to manufacturing stage. So we have to really look at the initial cost of investment. How can we really, and that is again one barrier because they use pad tools and many other automation software also. That really takes the technology cost to at a higher level. I'm sure the day will come when we'll start developing this in India or manufacturing it in India. That time we can bring down the cost of it. And especially if you look at Indian pharmaceutical industry, majority of our industry makes generic formulation. Now, generic formulation has one big requirement. So every year there is a price erosion happening at a very faster pace. Now, how do we really take care of that part is again something which needs to be looked into. Because generic demand is very erratic. Today it is there, tomorrow it is not there. And there are many players coming in the market and someone brings down the cost of the formulation, then the investment goes waste. So how do we really look at for generic industries, again something which we need to look into. Branded, it makes sense. Definitely. Generics also for high volume, high value products, it will definitely make sense. And second biggest barrier is in the quality and the technical issues. I'll not call it as a barrier, I'll say maybe they are not used to this technology. It may take some time for them to adopt this. But currently that's a barrier because material traceability is one bigger concern from quality point of view. Characterization is again a requirement which is required, which is very much required for any formulation for us to develop that product. So how do we really make use of it when we switch over to this technology is something which needs to be looked into. And and especially for raw material and intermediates also, which are very complex. So we need to really take care of that part as well. Again, how do we define a batch? And Vittal was making a mention of, now if you look at currently, for our batch size currently, in kilograms we define a batch. Now when we go to continuous manufacturing, how do we define a batch there? And that is something which needs to be proved. And once we prove it and then accordingly we can file it. 50 kg an hour, there is an advantage. Secondly, you can go up to 500 kg, if you can prove that you can run the process for 2 full days. You can continue running it per hour, 50 kg or 100 kg. You can run it for two full days and define the batch. That also is something which we need to look into. And from safety point of view, I think it has a lot of considerations into this technology. That's something which we need to look into. Also, the knowledge and the skill gap. When we add any technology, we have been moving to different technologies very fast. Now, adopting that technology becomes a challenge if the skill gap is there. If we really are able to plug that skill gap, definitely, it becomes easier. So their industry or the manufacturers also need to play a bigger role there because they can, kind of train people before even we adopt the technology, because just buying an equipment and running it, it will not make sense unless the people are used to and they are familiar with this technology, how do we operate it now? And the last one is, I'll say capability building of the people. Those who are going to use not only on the manufacturing side, but also on the quality function side. Because they also need to understand what exactly this technology really requires and how do we really, one, define the batch, how do we really analyze it, and if something gets stuck in the system, within the system, how do we really prove that part? So all these things we need to really work upon before we go to the next stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Anil. I think you have explained almost everything which is required to be done. That. Thank you. I think questions to Pawan and Dr. Rao. Basically, when this transitioning period is there, when we are going from the batch to the continuous manufacturing, what things, how the collaboration between manufacturing, R&D, quality control, how do we ensure that it is happened so that finally we reach the state of the continuous manufacturing from currently batch manufacturing?
So I think after a lot of deliberation, the ICHQ 13 was just published, I think about 2 months back. FDA has also put out a guidance out there. And it very clearly states that anybody who's looking to switch from batch to continuous manufacturing should do it in consultation with the regulatory body. So because, it is a new field, even the regulators are trying to evolve in terms of their expectations and their thinking. So my thought process, I'll be very honest about and blunt about this. I've been hearing about continuous manufacturing for, let's say, about a decade. And a lot of this thrust and this shift or wanting to shift or push somebody into this direction is by the brand companies who can do continuous manufacturing because they have a patent life extension, a brand building and projections where they think they have, a forecast which is far dependable. I think Anil mentioned about the volatility in the generic industry, where you try to do something like this and you invest in R&D, you invest in switching over or developing something, you go work with the regulator for, years to get them convinced. And you may find out that the market doesn't exist by the time you've done all this work, right? So, after reading, after Mr. Belapure reached out to me, my first gut instinct was, okay, this is not suitable for our industry. I wouldn't say I've changed that view completely. I still maintain that it is a very, very selective and very deliberate process that one needs to go into. Based on what I understand is the regulatory knowledge of the regulators themselves, I would not want to touch it with a 10-foot pole trying to convert a existing batch manufacturing process into a continuous manufacturing. Unless, the only caveat is, unless you're dealing with products like metformin, acetaminophen, ibuprofen, or maybe some of the antiretrovirals like TLE, TE, which were actually built with a process which is already continuous in nature, which is hot melt extrusion or maybe a roller compaction or watering. So it is already, so continuous manufacturing is not what Mr. Vittal mentioned, which is soup to nuts of API coming and, you start with the key starting material and it is integrated into a finished dose manufacturing plant and you get a coated tablet. That is the most ideal scenario, which will probably work in less than 2 to 3% of the, molecules. I think Anil mentioned about continuous manufacturing could be some element of, batch manufacturing, which is very simple. And then you automate certain processes which are continuous in nature. So that is the ideal scenario. But to put it bluntly, I don't think unless you have unique examples that anybody at this point should venture switching a batch manufacturing to continuous manufacturing. That is my opinion at this point.
Dr. Rao, do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, I have some comments on this. While seeing at continuous manufacturing, one may think that we have to start from the beginning. It is not so. Even if you in your existing products also, if need arises, how to convert these existing products into continuous manufacturing, you can give a thought. See, for example, I will tell one case in our hetero formulations, wherein during the COVID peak time, there was a peak demand for Paxlovid from Pfizer. See, we were the holder, authorized market holder for Ritonavir 100 mg tablets in Europe and US, whereas Pfizer is the market holder for Nirmatrelvir, one part. So the Paxlovid is 2 tablets of Nirmatrelvir and 1 tablet of Ritonavir. There is no other go. They have to come either to hetero or they have to go for Gilead. Of course, you all aware that Gilead is an expensive thing. Ultimately, they have come to hetero for this Ritonavir 100 mg. And Ritonavir 100 mg is a hot melt extrusion technique. So, a huge demand during those peak days, we could able to convert into continuous manufacturing, not entire cycle, but only this hot melt extrusion technique, and we use it to continuously produce hours together and make into lots and allot batch numbers, and we could able to supply the product. And this was a big success for our unit, and even you are aware that even the Trump or Bin Laden, he has taken the Paxlovid, and one integral part is manufactured from Hyderabad unit. So this was a novel example of how we can convert the existing products into continuous manufacturing, that we can give a thought. As Mr. Bellapure was telling, that we have to integrate this continuous manufacturing with quality control. The quality control, convincing the regulatory authorities is challenging, but we can put our efforts to convince the regulatory authorities, and it is not a big things, but only determination and our efforts should be there to convince the regulatory authorities, where we can go for skip testing for few batches, and we can reduce the load on quality control at the same time to reduce the cycle time. And we can acquire the knowledge, and we can reduce the cycle time, and we can at the same time we can reach the market demand. This is my.
Doctor, one question I have. Can you have the same product which is produced by continuously manufactured and by our existing technology?
Yeah.
Both the products ANDS can be different, and can we have that?
No, we cannot adopt the same technology to different molecules, but we have to see the critical attributes of the materials, and the design space also we have to consider while converting the existing products into the continuous manufacturing. Then only it is possible.
So I think just to add, Dr. Rao captured a perfect example of a product which is inherently continuous in nature, which is hot melt extrusion. And my suggestion is you wait for the next pandemic before you switch something, and where there is a demand from the US or from the world, that you do whatever you want, we will work with you in terms of approval. Otherwise, I'll tell you, do it with extreme caution, because it is easier said than done.
I do not have the answer. Can you have both the NDAs in the market?
Okay, so to answer your question, I think it is too early to make that determination. If you have already identified, the design space, and you have done all the work in terms of understanding your input material, your output material, your residence time, your critical quality attributes, then actually there is no need to do batch manufacturing anymore, because the advantages of continuous manufacturing is it can range from 5 kg batch size to 500 kg or 5000 kg, whatever you have designed in terms of setting the extremes. So theoretically, I would say you can have two options. However, I'd say that if you have taken the trouble to qualify a continuous manufacturing process, the need for a batch manufacturing process goes away. Because by virtue of its definition, continuous manufacturing is going to be defined by input material quantity, output material quantity, or residence time. There is nothing like 5 kg or 50 kg or 500 kg. So the need for a batch manufacturing is superseded by the qualification of a continuous manufacturing process.
You know that demands vary. Sometimes you have got demand for high, sometimes demands are low. So both the things can work out. ANDA with the small batch size and something more for the.
Correct. That actually is the benefit of continuous manufacturing, because you're not constrained to a particular batch size. Depending on the demand, depending on what your input material, depending on what you want, as long as you operate within that design space of mean residence time or mean conversion time or whatever you want to call it, and you have qualified the extremes of, batch size of, let's say, 5 kg or 500 kg, as long as it is within that, you can vary according to demand.
Thank you. I think it's very clear. I think Dr. Rao, I would like to ask another question. What are the technological advancements are required for transitioning from the batch to continuous? Currently, most of the tests, what we do is at each stage we go to the quality control, get it analyzed, then take the next step. How does it do how these steps are taken in the manufacturing, continuous manufacturing? If you can give your thoughts on this.
Yeah, for continuous manufacturing, one has to design the equipment with equipment manufacturers based on your product. And after designing it is not so easy to design the product. The product has to be developed in accordance with the continuous manufacturing equipment. And these continuous manufacturers also, we have to collaborate. And as per your need, as per the product need, you have to discuss with the manufacturers to design the equipment suitable to your process. And where to put this process controlling PAT tools to test the various stages of the process, way to reduce the load on the quality control and to continuously produce the product. You have to put the PAT tools in regular stages of the product, and once you meet these two aspects, you can able to these are the two challenges. One is the selection of the equipment for you suitable to your product, and another one is the selection of the PAT tools to test the equipment at various stages. And once you keep these two things, and you have to establish by validations, process validations or method validations to convince the regulatory agencies. These are the few challenges to make the product successful for continuous manufacturing.
I think previous speaker talked about it, that once you do this, you can release the batch to the market immediately. Is it possible, or we need to do some testing on this? Like impurities testing or the microbial testing is the part of many.
You need to do that. Currently to establish the product, you need to do it maybe by 100 or 500 batches, then you can do it. Reduce the testing, and then you can get to the market, and once in a 10 batches or 30 batches, or maybe once in a year you can do it, which currently regulators are accepting it. Yeah, provided you have a input control and the process control. Yeah, another one thing to add, Rao sir, the QBD, when we give it, we have recently twin screw digital technology. You can simulate the process before going to the real time. So that's one of the greatest advantage. You don't need really the material, but if you know the characteristics of the material, then you can do simulation of that. And that will give an added advantage. And you can test many things and before going to the design space.
Does it mean that digitalization and PAT is a prerequisite for going to the continuous manufacturing?
So probably yes, but that is only for the new products. But the existing products, as Bud sir said, not necessary to convert everything to the continuous. But the new products, certainly yes. If the people are working in R&D, and then definitely we can think of it. Yeah, but as you said, R&D cost will be very high in our generic space. That can be reduced by continuous manufacturing if we have that in place. Yeah.
Okay, I think we are discussing. What are the regulatory, how the regulatory bodies are looking at that, like MHRA or the FDA, and do they have different opinions on the continuous manufacturing, or it's easy to get this continuous manufacturing approved?
I think the good thing about continuous manufacturing is there is collaboration between ICH and FDA. They pretty much come out with the same guideline in terms of expectation. So there is no gap over there. But I think Indian pharma, which caters to multiple geographies, there is a inbuilt challenge because even though, I mean, you must have seen Mr. Vittal presented, you know, GLAT has provided 15, 20 machines, all to brand companies. Of course, you know, Granules or Hetero or everybody is buying it and adopting some version of continuous manufacturing. But you know, the brand companies are trying to dictate the paradigm, and USP is bought into it, FDA is pushing it, what have you. But I think there aren't many products. I think the switch of one existing to a continuous was, I think, Darunavir, which J&J did, and they worked on it for a long time. And you know, it being a HIV product, you know, there's volumes and other things. But to answer your question, at least ICH has put out a guidance, ICH Q13. FDA has published a guidance, and they are spelled out. However, you know, what is required, I mean, he talked about, everybody's talked about design space, process control, input material, output. You know, we all work in the industry where you know, the API manufacturers will change the batch size and the, you know, to save costs, they will change solvent, they will do something where the characteristic of the API that you get changes, or they may switch from one side to other because they have qualified. And the most important part of continuous manufacturing is being the predictive nature of the process, which is governed by the quality and the consistency of the input material. And in fact, you know, in continuous manufacturing, you almost need to tighten the acceptance criteria of input material, API as well as excipients, so that your design space is predictable. So again, coming back to the question, what are regulators thinking? There is some degree of congruence between ICH or Europe and FDA. Everybody else, I don't think is even, they're just waiting and watching, because there aren't too many other examples of, you know, continuous manufactured products being approved.
Thank you. I think I was told that there is a group in the FDA, emerging technologies,
Yes.
and we should coordinate with them to bring the product further.
Yes.
And they can tell you what needs to be done. So that's the one of the other aspects.
Yes. In fact, they are encouraging anybody who wants to do continuous manufacturing. GADUFA has laid out various meetings that you can do. And continuous manufacturing is something, if you're intending to switch from batch to continuous or develop something by continuous, you can seek consultation with the FDA in terms of what their expectations are going to be.
Yeah, even during, you know, if you talk about ISP forums, that is one forum where all the regulators will really participate. In that forum, continuous manufacturing is the technology which is being talked about, and they are encouraging. I remember the first discussion in 2015 when they talked about saying, why don't you switch over to it? And J&J was the company who presented this first. And you know, it was more of an integrated line, but you know, then they also talked about how continuous manufacturing is going to help industry, and I'm sure they are coming forward to support industry on this point.
So we are talking how difficult it is to implement the continuous manufacturing, though a lot of things can be done. Now, what is there for the MSME companies or the medium scale companies? If you can talk about it.
Like in the beginning, I mentioned, sir, it is the way to go in future. The still I'm in because the continuous manufacturing, as it described in ICHQ 13, feeding in, converting that in process material and concomitant removal. And also it states that any two processes can be connected. Not like continuous manufacturing is right from the API synthesis to the finished product. Like when for a medium-sized companies to start with, based on my experience as well, in the total unit operations of oral solids, coating is the easiest thing. If you look at the manufacturing equipment addendum of CPAC also, it states clearly batch coater or continuous coaters. They are all annually updatable. That's how we did it, converted batches into a continuous coater. When the filing, ANDA was approved in batch coater, but we converted into an annually updatable process as well. See, continuous coater, continuous operations. I will start with the simplest way is a continuous coater. Then I extend back because I expect easier way to start and extend back. When you are scaling up a product to the continuous coater, at a single moment of time, it still is a batch coater. If you take a 500 kilo batch coater, per hour batch coater, 40 kilos is the material will be there at any point of time. So if you experiment, you use your design of experiments, you create a design space with multiples of 40 kilos and then you put it into a continuous operation. That's how it is done and we were successful there. And now tableting is already continuous operation. Roll compactor, tableting, hot melt extrusion, they are all already a continuous operations. So connecting the tableting machine to the continuous coater, of course, if some products require some curing, you need to create that buffer, how much time it is to be cured. Some products require 1 hour, some products require 2 hours. So you need to create that buffer before the loss in weight feeder of the continuous coater takes up. So I always advise medium-sized company to start with the continuous coater and connecting the tableting to the continuous coater. Yeah, then comes the more complex. Even this continuous linear faders, they are available like for which is being used for MUPS technologies, in where we are feeding complex MUPS like and the same can be used. Then extend it to the granulation because the complexities keep on increasing. That's how I advise for medium scale companies to take up as a continuous manufacturing process. But at the same time, it is flexible. You can you can manufacture smallest batch size to the biggest batch size based on the requirement.
Thank you. How does the cost of this continuous manufacturing equipment, are we able to find out the ROI on this on right time?
I'll take this question.
Huh?
I'll take this question.
Please, okay.
This is my favorite topic of discussion always. If you look at from continuous manufacturing, what all it has to offer. The first example I'll talk about is improved process control. But that's the major one, which we look at. Normally, you would have seen a lot of variability when we have batch sizes. And when we move to continuous manufacturing, this variability will go down because that's one bigger advantage. Secondly, real-time process monitoring. That's another thing which we need to really look into from continuous manufacturing point of view. And that is definitely going to give us advantage. Reduce cost of production because if you look at from equipment point of view, let's say if it is a batch process, from right from your granulation to coating, how many people you deploy. And if you look at from continuous manufacturing point of view, I think if it is set up in one room and we integrate up to the compression stage and go further up to coating and further, I think we hardly need 2-3 people to really manage the entire show. So that's again a bigger advantage. I think somewhere Vittal talked about smaller footprint. That's something which is very, very exciting. In one of my previous organization, I was talking to one of my project colleagues saying, can we install this continuous manufacturing in a container so that if we have to move it to some other location tomorrow, can we really do it? I know there are regulatory challenges for this.
So when you send it in the container, no FDA.
I think
That is
Pfizer
what
has
I was
got
saying. So how do we really make sure that, we manage and rather qualify the regulatory requirements also. But tomorrow when it comes to shifting it to some other location, we can requalify the line and again start from there. But that was the thought. Maybe it will become a reality at some point of time, if not today.
Anil sir, Pfizer has got the same thing. I mean, they have shifted from one place to another place in
Yeah.
US and then started like that.
Because this
They
was
have
in
container.
2015, Girish, when I talked about this idea with my project team, I said I would like to have it in a container so that tomorrow if I have to shift it, can we do it? And I'm sure Mr. Belapure was also part of that organization that time. And scale variability is also, advantage. Flexibility and volume flexibility is another bigger advantage which we have with this. Reduced safety hazards. If you handle the bigger equipment, your safety hazards are very high. If you look at from usability point of view, the scale, size point of view, all of that, there are a lot of safety hazards. With this kind of technology, safety hazards automatically go down. That's another bigger advantage. Look at the QC. This will be a real-time release. Now you end up sending sample to QC. You have to wait for it. Discussion happen at every stage. Once you adopt to this technology, it will be a real-time release. That's another bigger advantage. And reduce processing time, obviously. Not for the products like Brufen and paracetamol, but at a other scale level. Now, so these are the advantages which I see, and there are many more. But because Vittal talked about few, so I don't want to touch upon all of those and repeat again. But these are the few.
He wants to add something.
I mean, in some of the technology, like PAT technology, will not work below 5% of the API which is there. And that we need to be really cautious about it. I mean, we need to pre-blend it, make it as a 5% API and then go for a further reduction. But real-time release is not possible with such a low dose like microgram level, and you need to test it. That's one disadvantage what we see in the continuous manufacturing. Yeah, when you go down the less than microgram level, then it is really difficult for the PAT. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I have to interrupt a little bit, sir. All right, really sorry. I know it's been quite an interactive session which is happening and quite good points, but there's another gentleman who was supposed to be here among the panelists, but fortunately we could get him virtually to join us. Let us see if we can connect with him. I'm talking about Mr. Sandeep Raktate, the Executive Vice President, CIPLA. Yes, he is here. I think he can hear us. Can we give a huge round of applause so that we test if he can hear us?
Sandeep
sir?
Rakate is with CIPLA, and they have implemented continuous manufacturing in one of the products. So let us hear from you what you have done, what problems you face. Everybody talked about those. So you please tell us, and what cost was involved in this whole thing.
Hi, good morning, Billabari Sahib, and good morning, everyone. I'm sorry I could not make it because of the flight cancellations. So, can you repeat the question, sir? Because I just got into the line.
I think you implemented the continuous manufacturing in one of the product, right? So what was your experience, how difficult it was or how easy it was? What was the cost involved and what benefits you derived?
Yeah, thank you. I think, no, I'll go through that. I think when we select any platform for continuous manufacturing, I think the easiest and the best platform is either DC or you can have a roll compaction process. So in our case, typically we are gone for the roll compaction, like you get a premix in the blender, and with the gravity that premix go to the roll compaction. From roll compaction it goes to a tableting. In our case, we put the 2 tableting machines so that we get a high throughput machine. And from the tableting, before tableting, we have a continuous blender. From continuous blending to the tableting, and tableting to the continuous coater. And that's the end product, and then it goes to the either bottle packing or the blister. In our case, it's a bottle packing. But typically, the most important part is that the process analytical tools, right? So online testing, that's the most critical thing. being a continuous blending, we have an BU part online, so you don't need to take a samples. And when you set up this line, I think we need to select the right product. Your starting material, your material attribute is very, very critical to have a proper premix, which will, which will have a which will have a compactions, and we get a better granules. So this is typically can give us 2 billion tablets from one line. You don't need an utility like steam, or in case of the upstream side, you don't need a huge electricity is required. So when you do a business model, it becomes more economic. But I take a pause for any further questions. Hello?
Okay.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible. We wanted to know what was the cost of putting this whole thing together.
Typically, ideally, it depends on choice of the equipment. So typically, when I talk about 2 billion line, it will somewhere around 80 to 100 crore setup is required. And I'm talking about the brownfield. It is not a greenfield, right? So other than the building, the clean rooms and the equipment, it costs around 80 to 100 crores. But it will give a 2 billion capacity.
So it is possible to get ROI on this, whatever investment you are doing.
ROI is also depend on the molecule. ROI stand around 4 to 5 years. Within 5 years, typically you can cover the ROI if you target 2 billion capacity.
And the cycle time, did it reduce from the particular batch? Like in the quality control, most of the things are being done on the with PAT tools. Does the cycle time reduced overall?
Yes, the cycle time is getting reduced like almost 40 to 50% reduction in the cycle time, because you don't need to wait for the offline sample and getting the results from the QC, specifically on the blend uniformity, content uniformity, this being online. So depend on molecule, but I can say 30 to 50% cycle time reduction is quite possible and it is achievable.
You want to ask me?
Yeah, I'll just add to what Sandeep just mentioned. If we'll start looking at ROI directly, ideally we should not be doing it for these kind of technologies, because there are indirect benefits which we don't quantify. If we are able to produce more and supply faster to the market, that's another direct advantage. So if we convert it into the sales, what benefit we get, that's again something which we need to look into. Because if we look at direct benefit, operating expense and all, that will not really pay
to
back.
add to your
So this is a new technology, so it will take some time. That I understand. Yeah, okay.
But the operating costs are very less, right? So that's the reason it will come down.
So Sandeep, you be on the line. I'm going to now hand over the questions to the audience.
I just want to add few.
Yeah,
okay, fine, that's fine.
No, but Sandeep has something to add. I think Sandeep, you wanted to finish off something.
Just quickly, yeah. I think on advantage point, it reduces your total manufacturing costs of the product. When you go for the continuous versus conventional, definitely the overall costs get reduced. Obviously, shorter production time, high throughput. It also reduces the human risk, like right first time, because you don't have a manual interventions. Being a continuous line, the risk of people, the sampling error or sampling bias, and the setting of the machines. So all these risks get rid, and also improves the quality, because being a continuous, once your parameter is set, your recipe is set, it become more easy for the monitoring and evaluation of quality. Yeah.
Thank you. I think it is open for questions. Audience, please. Last 5 minutes we have. If there are any questions or everything is clear?
Belabur sir, one more point I just want to add it, because the recently last 5-7 years, I think FDA is very particular on the cleaning part, and the whole industry has gone through different techniques on the cleaning in a depth cleaning. So being a continuous manufacturing, that cleaning issues get sorted out, because you try to reduce the footprint. With the less footprint, you have an end-to-end manufacturing, and then most of the equipments are designed in such a way that it is easy for cleaning.
Okay. So I think you can ask.
Good afternoon. I am Sudarshan. I head the electronic compliance of corporate quality function. While my understanding is most of our unit operations are aligned to the objectives of Pharma 2.0 and Pharma 3.0, the evolution of CM might be due to the evolution of emerging technologies, right? Probably you know the digital transformation necessity happened to be the need of the hour, and that's how the CM has come into. My question is to any of the panel members, anyone can answer this. While we understand quality by design as a key element of CM, where you have PAT tools, RTRT, everything aligned, during this process, a lot of data is also being generated. So, DID, data integrity by design, also complements the QBD. Do you feel that unless any manufacturing facility has a well-thought CPS, cyber physical system, you cannot achieve the objective of the real CM, which is digital transformation?
Yeah, I'll take it.
Can I take up this, Bilabari, and then other panels can add?
Sandeep is answering.
Please go ahead.
Sandeep, you want to go?
Yeah, I think I'll just try to attend, and guys, the other panel members can add it. So I think very good question. This is something correlate when you start from the quality maturity to digital maturity to Pharma 4.0, right? As we set up the standards on the quality, and I think everyone is going for the digital transformation. So the way continuous manufacturing line you set up, I think the platform, the architect of the IT, OT, and IIT, it's set in such way that all the data will be fetched automatically. So the data get logs and managed automatically. So data integrity issue is get it sorted out. And ultimately, you can, the moment you have in quality maturity and digital maturity, you can straightway go for the Pharma 4.0. So where you have your operating model, you have an holistic control strategy and digitization strategy. So definitely it helps on the DI, that's for sure.
You know, with emerging technologies, the skill set, I mean the current skill set in terms of engineering, in terms of neural networks, data learning, machine learning and everything is going to be, while this is transformational, that maturity has to be there on the shop floor along with the quality team, because we have QBD which has been in place for the last nearly 8 to 9 years. But shop floor quality even today is not able to understand, what is the risk mapping, what is the FMEA analysis, what is the QBD, PDR and everything. And they go by the constraint of, oh, this is the spec that is there, and just because you're out of spec, I'm going to reject the batch, right? So it is transformational. To answer your question, yes, it does address a lot of those things. Cyber security is very critical, and I'll let somebody who's experiencing some problems with cyber security address that.
Yeah, sure. So thank you. I don't want to talk about cyber security. That's a different experience altogether. But to answer your question first is, we all talk about quality part of it and data integrity as a major concern. I think that goes to the culture of the organization, because that is something which is to be transformed. Even if we, before we think of adopting a new technology, that's the first basic requirement we need to look into. And the second one, which you already made a mention of, and the technology also supports this, is use of digital tools. The more we use, if you look at the organization, and my past experience also in my previous organization and now also, I'm working on digital as a bigger tool, which we start using right from the manufacturing stage, which tells you about how the batch is behaving, how the batch is moving, what all is required to correct that batch, and even up to the next stage where it really automatically corrects that system. So you are trying to reduce the manual intervention. That's one bigger thing which will help you. Also, it will tell you on the screen directly how the batch is processing, how it is behaving and all. So if there is a auto correction required or correction, that can be done. So it doesn't really need a manual intervention. So that will also help you. So these are a few things which, and the technology itself talks about having, making use of PAT tools and other technologies. So that also will really help correct these kind of issues. I'm sure DI remains a concern for every organization, but in a different fashion. But the moment we switch over to this, it will reduce the impact of DI.
My only point is, See, the CPS is not related to cybersecurity. CPS is IoT, Internet of Things. So what actually is envisaged from CM is embracing the technology where you have the end-to-end process like you mentioned about the oral process or the injection process. Unless this entire process is integrated towards technology in the form of cloud, public cloud, private cloud, and you have the PHEs are also linked, we are told that the CM objectives will never be realized, right? Are we really prepared, right? Considering country like India, like the other gentleman who happened to give examples, those companies which are in the West, right? Here in India, we have problems related to broadband, right? If problems related to broadband are not solved, how can we embrace emerging technology in order to realize the objectives of CM, which is the need of the hour for Pharma 4.0?
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you for your comment.
Previously, I think you know that when you start the internet, it will keep on roaming. Today, at least that is not there, right? We are in the right direction, definitely, and Government of India is looking after that. And I think there are a lot of hubs are coming up with the smart technology, which you see. And future, today FDA is coming to your site, but tomorrow, over the 5 years or I don't know, but FDA will really see your process online. You have to give the machine online and then they will see the performance of that. Then how do you do it? So you need to have a broadband, definitely it's going to come up. And I don't think we are not too far away from that. It's going to happen. So everybody wanted to live. Even your customers wanted to see your process, how it is behaving. So that's what it's going to be in future. Yeah, that's what IoT or 4.0, Industry 4.0, 2.2, everybody talk about the same thing. But really it's going to happen to our industry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions, please? No questions?
Myself, Rakesh, and I'm from the Hi, myself Rakesh and I'm from SPI Pharma. My question is to all the panelists. What is your advice to the formulators how to adopt the process in the beginning itself? Because the direct compression process, since it eliminates many of the steps, and what are the critical parameters needs to be considered to switch to the DC process? And one more question is, and how is this traditional development method when we going for the continuous manufacturing process? Do we need to adopt this in the beginning itself during the development stage, and how it is going to be critical when we do the development with the traditional approach and when we switch over to the continuous manufacturing process?
So I think continuous manufacturing lends itself very well for processes like roller compaction, hot melt extrusion, because by virtue of the process, they're already continuous in nature. Okay, direct compression is a little trickier because depends on at what stage you start the continuous manufacturing process. I mean, if you look at what GLAD's example was, Mr. Vittal presented, it is loss in weight feeder. The loss in weight feeder is it senses and it automatically keeps feeding. There is auger screw or whatever mechanism of feeding and maintaining that continuous blend, which feeds into tableting press and then into a coater. So depends on, I mean, these are early days. I can't give you a very simple answer. Depends on the drug load you have. If it is low drug load, quality concerns about uniformity are always going to be there. The ability to maintain consistency in your input materials is most critical for direct compression, right? Because if the behavior of the API changes and it's going to have a different sort of flow rate, then your continuous manufacturing process is going to be difficult to be reproducible, So for development, the design space is something that you have to do multivariate design. You have to look at, trying to challenge various parameters and satisfying the quality expectations. which are still, I would say, a little bit unknown for new development, because we've all talked about certain examples. I will say that it works very well for high volume. It works very well for products like, or processes like coating and tableting. And I'm sure the coating that we are all talking about is non-functional coating, right? Obviously. And I'm very skeptical about MUPS. MUPS as by itself is fraught with challenges, and to go to continuous manufacturing and MUPS is kind of sending a red carpet invitation to the FDA to come and audit and challenge your manufacturing process. Okay, so I would say if your product is being developed and you want to do continuous manufacturing, you have to look at what are the characteristics of the API, what manufacturing process really lend itself, in terms of, and then also the bioequivalence aspects of it, right? Because if you have BCS class 2 and 4, it may not really work. These are suitable for BCS class 1 and class 3 type of molecules. So from an R&D aspect, there are various things you ought to look at. For a brand company which is doing clinical study, things are much easier. In fact, ICH Q13 as well as FDA guidance is very clearly stated that if you're going from batch to continuous manufacturing, you may be required to repeat bioequivalence studies. Okay, that is the stated in the guidance. So, if you're developing a new product, that is the best time to start if you want to do continuous manufacturing. And there are certain unit operations which were far more amenable for continuous manufacturing, like I'd say roller compaction or hot melt extrusion. If you want to do wet granulation and continuous manufacturing, I would say that it is far more difficult than doing it for roller compaction.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Before closing,
can I
you want to speak?
Add a few points to his thought process. Ultimately, any industry nowadays, they have to go for continuous manufacturing only. Now, you cannot continue long for this batch type of processing, and when your existing plant is full of products, go and establish a new products, it will be difficult nowadays. Ultimately, one has to look for continuous manufacturing. And as he said, new products, you have to keep it in mind that QBD concept while designing the product, where you can have much design space to play with the continuous manufacturing process. And if there is a need in the existing products, even the batch, the intermediate stages also you can convert into manufacturing, continuous manufacturing, like compression or continuous coating or continuous bottle filling after coating. These techniques you can adopt in your existing units, whereby you can reduce a lot of human involvement and cost reduction and load on your manufacturing and quality control.
Thank you, Doctor. Before closing, we are going to close with him because already time is over. So what I would like to do is that at least each one of you can give the real case study in your factories or where you employed it. Not more than 1 minute each person, okay?
I think recently we have taken one of the trial for one of the product which is required microgram level, and we did a pre-blending to 5% and then gone to the 0.05% in the compression stage, and it's really fantastic. And we got a RSD is less than 1%. We have a 3 strengths, we have checked it. The lower strength is about 25 microgram and higher is about 300 microgram, and everything is less than 1% RSD. That's what I've really witnessed it. And then when you compare to the continuous manufacturing, if you have the same tooling, and it's a matter of 5 minutes to change from one process to, one strength to another strength. Matter of 5 minutes, not more than that. You just have to remove the previous batch, our previous product, and then do it. And another great advantage is I think recently we are doing 10x. If it is beyond 10x, you need to go for bio. In this case, I don't think it is required because it's scale out, and that's the greatest advantage continuous manufacturing can bring it to the table. I think future is that, and future I'm sure everybody will adopt. And most of the US and European companies coming to India because of the manpower and the cost of production is less. Why there, as Pawan sir said, all the innovators has got continuous manufacturing machines with them, and that is they are going to be cost competitive for India. You are not going to, we are not, at least we are not going to get the same product at the same cost. We need to bring the cost down. That is only possible with continuous manufacturing. Yeah, that's a future. I think with this I can conclude.
Thank you.
Then
Anybody wants to add? Anybody wants to case study?
Okay,
It's okay. Yeah.
I don't have an example where we have switched, but we develop products by hot melt. We develop products by roller compaction. To go into continuous manufacturing for a mature product where the volumes are predictable is a different ball game as compared to developing a product by continuous manufacturing and hoping that the volumes justify continuous manufacturing. I mean, like Dr. Rao mentioned, if you start investing in continuous manufacturing process in R&D, then it is a mind shift that you do, and you work with whatever is challenges and you will overcome it. It is not that it is, I have a contrarian view that I don't think it is necessary for everybody to do continuous manufacturing. You have to be very careful in terms of identifying what is a suitable molecule or a product where continuous manufacturing is going to be helpful and what unit operation.
Thank you. Sandeep, do you have a case study?
Thank you. I think very quickly I'll cover up. If someone has to think for continuous manufacturing, I think in brownfield also you can do. Greenfield is the best thing, but you need to select the right product. I think it makes sense to have a larger volume, 1 billion to 2 billion. And in terms of platform, there is no meaning to go for the wet granulation until unless the demand, because you will not have a COGS benefit. But make sure, guys, you have to have an integrated solution. You don't need to offload the material, then only it will be having advantage. And few examples like having continuous blending, so there is no loading, unloading, loading into the tableting, and go for a multiple tableting so that to get a benefit, and continuous coater. I think these are the few things. If you have an integrated solution, then you can definitely think for continuous manufacturing to avail the best of productivity, best of quality, and best of sustainability. Thank you.
Sandeep.
See, recently we had there is a Ghent University in Belgium, and they have a continuous manufacturing, and they are working a lot in that. And now they are coming up with publishing the journal. And in one of the facility, they have run for 5 days continuous manufacturing without any stoppage. And not even 0.01% is the loss. 5 days continuous manufacturing.
I think that is the best way to, anyone want to go for, anyone want to go for that, I think best one to tie up with university, where you are small lab scale, you demonstrate your product and then you scale up to your site.
Okay.
Hello.
Please go ahead.
See, personally, I had experience of connecting compression to coater in continuous coater, like where the 500 kilo per hour lines are there. And I did taken trials with twin screw extruder as well as a hot melt as well. But they are not commercialized as of now. Coming to the we can do any batch sizes. Because once we start thinking towards continuous manufacturing, if we remove our barriers about first the cost and all those things, then you can start applying your mind, then you will be there. Like as Mr. Rao also mentioned, it is going to be our future.
Thank you. I think everybody here talked about the continuous manufacturing in formulations. Actually, there is a lot of things have happened, particularly in the APIs, with the use of flow cells, and it is bringing the safety requirement also quite down. Instead of dealing with the 3,000, 4,000 liters of the solvents, you are dealing with 10 or 15 ml of the at one time. Unfortunately, none of us are here. Next time.
I can give you one example, Mr. Belapure. One of the companies working on continuous purification process for biosimilar. I don't want to name the company, but they are working on continuous purification for biosimilar product. So that's on.
At least I know, I don't know whether Sandeep remembers. I think Cipla has also done something great in the
Correct,
API,
correct. So I
if I
think,
remember.
yeah, in biologicals, it is very old. You can have a perfusion technology on upstream, and the same thing you can interlink with continuous chromatography, including virus inactivation and two-stage chromatography. So I think biological, it is well established and it is already proven.
Yeah, in biologicals, one Indian company is doing the continuous manufacturing for 21 days continuously. Instead of using the 4,000, 10,000 liter reactors, they are using the bags to process it further. It is, so that's, I
Single-use
think,
bag.
it is very interesting field. And also everybody is glued to the chair, shows that they were interested in the continuous manufacturing. So thank you, fellow panelists. I think it was a good job. Hopefully people enjoyed it. So I close with this session. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Check. I think the claps did not suffice. Yeah, be more generous. Well, absolutely. As I'm not from the field, but I just stood there and heard, or the way you were discussing about it. What I could see from my point of view was it was so interactive and engaging. Like even a person from out of the industry was so glued to this panel discussion, so I can definitely understand how everyone over here, and as you rightly mentioned, sir, you can just see how engaging the panel discussion was because everyone were glued to their seats. So thank you all the panelists, and of course, sir, for moderating it so wonderfully. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, a huge round of applause for our panelists and our moderator for our first panel discussion of the day.